Okay, so today we're going to continue working on the reading section. I think with you guys, we got to purpose questions, right? Maybe it was that the last thing we did yesterday?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, right? Okay, great. So we'll continue today with our next type of question. We'll probably finish today so that tomorrow we can do a different set. And we're not going to go question by question looking at the question types, but just practice, focus on practicing tomorrow. Okay, but today let's try to finish this one. Now, the next type of question that we need to see are what we call paraphrase questions. Can anyone please tell me what it means to paraphrase something? What does paraphrasing mean?
To say something in your own words.
Exactly. To say something in different words, but to say the same, right? Without losing the main idea. So it's based on something that already exists. So that's what you're gonna have to do here. And actually that's a really big skill for the TOEFL test. I don't know, like some of you were in the writing section, and when we get to the writing section, you're gonna see that you need to paraphrase a lot, not only in the writing, also in the speaking section, and here in the reading section as well. So it's a really good thing to know different words to say the same. Now, what will happen in these questions? They will show you a sentence from a certain paragraph. They will point that out for you, and they will tell you, they will give you 4 options and tell you, so choose the option that is closest to the sentence, to the original sentence that they show. So basically, you have to look for an answer choice that contains the same idea as the original sentence, but can probably be expressed in a different way, in different words. Maybe the order is switched. Maybe in the original sentence you have subject, object, and verb, and in your answer choices you have, let's say, object, subject, and verb. So maybe the roles, the order of the sentence is different. The words are very likely gonna be different as well. They're gonna be using synonyms in the answer choices. But what you need to keep in mind is that the main idea of the original sentence should be kept. That is the only thing that you have to focus on, okay? So now, what I really like about this specific question is that you don't need to read the entire passage. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't take up a lot of time. So let's see. This is an example of a paraphrase question. We're not working with the passage we were doing about the Teotihuacan because I didn't find any paraphrase questions in this set. In this specific set, we don't have any. Remember that paraphrase questions, you can have none or you could have 1 per passage, from 0 to 1. So in that case, we didn't have any. But we're going to work with a different one. Okay, guys, to give you some context, this passage was about Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, okay? So when they say the theory, we are referring to the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin. Now, could anyone, maybe Evelyn, could you please read the question and the sentence?
The theory is based in the assumptions that life developed from non-life and progressed and developed in indirect manner.
Okay, Renee, thank you. So that is the sentence, right? But before that, we have the question, and it says, which sentence, A, B, C, or D, is most similar to the following sentence from paragraph 1? No, and the sentence is what Evelyn read. The theory is based on the assumptions that life developed from non-life and progressed and evolved in an indirect manner. So I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds to read the options and tell me what you think. Which one you would choose as the best or the closest one to the original sentence. Okay, guys, take a moment to read. Guys, have you read? What do you think?
I think it's A.
Okay, good. So Ricardo says say, we have a message in the chat. Laura says say as well, good. Anybody else? Okay, Henry agrees. Does anyone disagree? Okay, great, perfect. Now, can anyone please tell me why not C? Was anyone considering C as an option? And why did you eliminate that option? Why did you go for A and not C? Because there's one thing about A, you know, everything is great about A. It says the theory, which is the theory, the theory of evolution, which is the theory, is founded on, which is the same as saying is based on. Then we have life developed from non-life, which is basically non-organic compounds are the basis of life. You know, the basis of life developed from non-life, non-organic compounds, and progressed and evolved in an indirect manner, basically developed in an unguided way. Pretty much the same. But what happens? There's a word that's kind of, I don't know, not so close to the one in the original sentence. We have the word evidence versus the word assumptions, you know? So I don't know. There's that. And what happens with option C? Why not C? Who can tell me that?
It is using a conditional if we assume.
So mostly because of the structure, you say.
Also because he says that his theory holds true, but the sentence never says whether that Darwin's assumption is true or not.
Okay, good. I really like that. Great. Okay, guys. So the best tips that I can give you here. First of all, never ever read the entire paragraph unless you have something that you need context for. So maybe you can say, maybe if you have something like the theory is based on this. So in that case, obviously you know what this is. right? So in order to have that context, you should go back to the paragraph and read beyond the sentence. But if not, if everything that you need is in the sentence, then there's no really need to look for anything else in the paragraph, because that is gonna be confusing, and you're more likely to make mistakes if you read everything. Okay? Because you're gonna find other information in the paragraph, and you're gonna think that you need that information in the sentence, so it's gonna get complicated. So that would be my first tip. Don't ever read the entire paragraph unless it's necessary for context. Second thing, in order to do well in this type of questions, what you gotta do is understand the main idea of the original sentence and compare that with the main ideas of each sentence or each option. Now, how do we know what the main idea of a sentence is? The biggest tip I can give you here is look for the main verb of the sentence. Obviously, in a sentence, you can have more than one verb, but there is just one main verb in that sentence. So what is the main verb in this sentence, in the original one?
Based.
Exactly. Great. That is the main verb. Is based on. Is based on. So the main idea is going to be around the main verb. So basically, the main idea of this sentence is to show what the theory is based on. If I ask the question, what is Charles Darwin's theory based on? Then you would use this sentence as the answer, right? The theory is based on this and this and that. So the main purpose of the sentence is to show what the theory was based on. So that main idea should be kept in the option that you choose. So if we look at the other options, like for example, option B, can anyone tell me what the main verb of this sentence is? Option B. It's
Prove.
can, exactly. Great, Laura. It's prove or can prove, right? So that is the main idea of this sentence. Basically, that we can prove that evolution occurs this and this and that, right? So the main idea of option B is that we can prove that evolution occurs in this and that. So that has nothing to do with the main idea that we established was the one from the original sentence, right? To show what the theory is based on. So option B couldn't be the one. Now, same thing goes for option C. What is the main verb of option C? And that is a little bit more complicated than the other ones. What's the main verb?
Assume.
Not necessarily. You know, the thing about option C is that the order is not, it's not in the typical order. In the conditional sentence, like there are two parts, you know, the result clause and the condition. The result clause is the most important one, is the independent one. The condition is the dependent one. Because if you think about it,
True.
that is the main verse, all true. This is all extra. That is the dependent clause because it depends on the other one. You cannot just say, if we assume that life at its origin was created from non-organic compounds and developed in an unguided manner, and I stop there, then that's not a complete sentence. But if I just say his theory holds true, that is a complete sentence. So this is the main clause, and therefore the main verb is going to be in that clause. So therefore the main verb is holds. So the focus of option C, the main idea of option C is that his theory holds true. If this and this and that, that's complementary information. Again, that is not the main idea that we established was the one from the original sentence. We want to know what the theory is based on, not whether his theory holds true or not. And that's what Henry said in the beginning, right? So it was really good in thinking that way. And same thing goes for option D. What is the main verb in option D?
Make assumptions.
No, not really. The main verb here is, right?
It is hard.
Exactly, it is hard. Because if you ask a question, you would say, is it hard or not? Yes, it is hard. What is hard? Then that's a different question. The main question would be, is it hard to make assumptions? Yes, it is hard. Right? So is the main verb. So option D, again, is focusing on something else, whether it's hard or not to make these assumptions, which has nothing to do with the main idea from the original one. The only one whose main verb is the same or is a synonym is option A. And that is like a good tip. Look at the main verbs. In option A, we have the theory is founded on, and exactly that is the main idea, what the theory is founded or is based on. It's the same. Now, everything else doesn't have to be necessarily the same. Honestly, we could even delete this. If we were looking for a summary, then we could actually, this option A would be correct, even if you didn't have anything like this. If you didn't have any of that, and it will be like, the theory of evolution is founded on assumptions, it would still be correct, even if it's missing like information, because that is not the main information. The main idea, again, is just that the theory is founded on certain assumptions. Even if we had something like this, option A would still be correct, So those are the tips that I can give you. Don't read the paragraph, don't read everything, and always look for the main idea, and a good way to do that is by identifying the main verbs. Okay, guys? Do you have any questions about this type? Okay. Nice. Now let's move on to reference questions. Now these questions are, I would say, the easiest ones that you'll get in the TOEFL reading. They are the easiest and the quickest ones. You're gonna be using 30 seconds at most in here. So basically these reference questions, they give you a pronoun, and you have to identify what noun it refers to. Does anyone know what a noun is? What is a noun? Anybody?
The one the sentence is about, or the one that is talked about.
Okay. That is close, but it's not necessarily true, because you mean the subject, right? Now, yes, the subject is always going to be a noun, but a noun is not always going to be the subject. Like, for example, if I say, Maria likes guitars. Okay? In this case, what is the subject of the sentence?
Maria.
Maria, great. Because we're talking about Maria. This is the subject, and as Harry says, it is a noun. Because it's the name of something. But what happens with the word guitars? Is that a subject? It's the
No,
object.
it's a noun.
Exactly, but it is a noun. In this case, it's the object, but it's a noun. We're not talking about guitars, we're talking about Maria, but it's still a noun. Do you guys think that like or likes is a noun? is like a noun? We're gonna go farther than that. Okay, just to give you more examples. We said Maria is the subject of the sentence and it's a noun. Guitars is also a noun, although it's not the subject, right? It's the object of the sentence. So do you guys think that the word like is a noun?
I think it's a verb.
It's a verb because it describes the action, right? A verb is something that describes an action or the name of an action, right? Like, play, do, make, eat, sing, and everything else. What about the word read? Is it a noun?
No, it's an adjective.
Exactly. The word read is not a noun, it's an adjective. Why? Because it's modifying the noun. The noun here is guitar. So when I'm changing that image of a guitar, of any guitar to a red guitar, and I'm modifying that, I'm describing the noun, right? I'm modifying the image that you have of the noun. So when I describe a noun, then I'm using an adjective. So in this case, Maria and guitars or guitar are nouns. So what happens? Nouns are gonna be basically the names of objects, the names of people, names of ideas, of places, of groups of people, right? Those are nouns. Basically the names of everything that are not verbs, that are not actions, and that are not describing something, right? Those are nouns. And can anyone tell me what a pronoun is? What's a pronoun?
A word that can replace the noun.
Completes? Are you sure?
That it refers to nouns.
Exactly. So a pronoun is a word that refers to the noun or that replaces or could replace a noun in a sentence. So for example, we have two sentences now here. We have Maria likes red guitars. She doesn't have any though. Okay, we have those two sentences. So in the first one, we said that we have two nouns, right? We're gonna make this even better. I'm gonna change this so that you can see more examples. Let's say he doesn't have any of those. Okay. Now we have two nouns in the first sentence, right? Maria was a noun and guitars was another noun, or guitar. Now we're saying that a pronoun is something that replaces or could replace the noun, right? So in our second sentence, can you tell me what are the pronouns that we have? In the sentence, she doesn't have any of those though. What are the pronouns there?
One of them is she.
Exactly. And the other?
Any.
Okay. You sure?
Those.
Those, great.
Us.
Those are the two pronouns. Why? Because if you think about it, in the second sentence, the word she is replacing what? Is referring to what?
To Maria.
Exactly, to the noun Maria. And the word those is referring to?
Guitars.
Exactly. So we are replacing them. Of course, we could again mention the nouns, and we could say, Maria likes red guitars. Maria doesn't have any of any red guitars. So we can do that, but it would sound weird in a paragraph, right? To repeat too much, Maria guitars, Maria guitars. So Maria likes red guitars. Maria doesn't have any red guitars. It's repetitive. Now, in order to avoid that repetition, then we have created pronouns, which replace those nouns and refer to them, right? That's basically what you have in this question. In this question, you will have obviously the entire paragraph, and they will take one of those pronouns, like the word those, and they will tell you, what does this pronoun refer to? So you have to point out the word guitars or red guitars, okay? Or maybe they will take the word she and we will tell you, what does the word she refer to? And then you have to say, it refers to Maria. That's it. Now, this is a little bit of the grammar behind the question, but honestly, I don't think you need to really know this. When you read, it's a bit more about common sense. You will know, like, in a few seconds, in a matter of seconds, without even knowing what a noun or a pronoun is. Okay, so we're not gonna spend too much time here. I just wanted you to have a bit of context so that you get into the question. But basically, that's what they're gonna ask about. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, guys. One more thing. If you have this question and they ask you, she doesn't have any of those, and they say, what does the word those refer to? What you have to do in order to answer the question, obviously you have to read the sentence where the word is. Sometimes you will have the answer in the same sentence, right? Maybe this is in two sentences. Maybe it's just one and I have a semicolon here. So you have to read the same sentence. If you don't find the answer, you have to read the sentence before, right? It was just two sentences, then you have to read the previous sentence. And if you don't find the answer, then it could be in the previous sentence. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go to the sentence where you have the word. If you don't find the answer there, then you read the one before. And if you don't find it, then you have the previous sentence to read. And that's kind of how you're gonna go until you get to the answer. I promise though that most of the time it's either in the same or in the previous sentences. Okay, guys? Let's look at an example. Mateo, could you please read the question? Question number 5.
The word those in paragraph 2 refers to.
Right. Don't read the options because it's confusing. Remember, I think this goes for most of the questions. Better not to read the options first before it's better to first find your answer on your own and then compare it with the options. Because if not, then you're gonna go biased when you read the paragraph. Your brain is gonna naturally select an option. So it's better to first try to find the answer on your own. We're gonna do the same here, guys. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of seconds. Please take a moment to read and let me know what you think. Yeah, so what do you think? Okay, Henry says D, Laura says D, great. Do you all agree? Perfect. That's really good, guys. We're on the same page. It is totally D, traits and characteristics. So we can solve this by just reading, we did before. We go back to the question, to the sentence where the word is. We read it, and it says, over time, beneficial traits and characteristics that promote survival will be kept in the gene pool, while those that harm survival will be selected against. So we're definitely talking about traits and characteristics. And it's kind of like a parallel situation, like put a wall in here, while, there are certain, one thing, like, this is like as a parenthesis, one thing that is gonna help you really in the TOEFL reading, and honestly in everything, is learning connectors, conjunctions. Connectors, transition words, or linking words, they are really helpful. If you know what those are, if you know how to use them or what they're used for, then just by reading, you'll know. There are like clues in the reading specifically. So here this while is telling us that we have contrast. So this thing that was mentioned before the word while is the opposite of what is mentioned after the word while, right? And this word is a connector. And if you know how to use it, then you know that. So you know that what is before while is the opposite to what is after while. And that could be a good clue as well, because beneficial traits and characteristics should be the opposite of those that harm survive. That means that beneficial, harm are opposite, and therefore we should be talking about the same thing, traits and characteristics. But honestly, that's not even necessary. I'm gonna give you one more tip for these type of questions. Before you even go back to reading the paragraph, my advice is only read the question and start eliminating options. How? You have these pronouns. Now, the good thing about pronouns is that you have singular and plural pronouns. And also sometimes when you talk about people like he or she, you have female and male pronouns. So in this case, the word those, is it plural? Is it referring to more than one thing? Or is it singular, just referring to one thing? Is it plural or singular? Great. You use those for plural, right? You use these for singular, or that in that case. So just by knowing that, then you can answer the question without even reading, right? Because you know that those cannot be referring to gene pool. If it was gene pool, then it would have to be that. You know that it cannot be referring to survival, and you know that it cannot be referring to natural selection, because all of these are singular nouns. The word those is plural and has to be referring to a plural noun. And the only one in these options that is plural is traits and characteristics, right? That's plural. So just by knowing that, just by like looking at the options and eliminating them, then sometimes you can get to the answer. Not always though. Sometimes maybe you have like natural selections here, two options. So you have to read. But those are some tips I can give you guys. Is that okay? Do you have any questions about this one? No? No, it's really easy, right? It's okay. Okay, guys. So that's it. Before we get to the last question, we're missing vocabulary questions. Okay, guys? Vocabulary questions. Hang on. The thing about vocabulary questions is that they're so frequent, and there are honestly so many strategies, but the most effective, the most efficient one is to actually learn vocabulary. That is the best thing you guys can do. That's why I always leave it for the end. There are some strategies though, in case you don't know the word. But before we talk about those strategies, I want to give you some tips for studying vocabulary. The first tip I'm going to give you for learning vocabulary, always learn with context. So don't just memorize lists, because that's not an effective way to study. With flashcards and everything, you memorize them, but it's short memory. It's gonna last a few days, but in the long term, you're gonna forget those words that you memorized. Or you're gonna get confused with them. You learn 2 words, you're gonna think that the first word has the second word's meaning. So it's better always to learn with context. That's the way that it stays on your mind. Second, is talking specifically about vocabulary for the reading, always only focus on learning adjectives. 95% of the words that you have in vocabulary questions are adjectives, okay? And in general, learning adjectives is going to improve your writing, your speaking, and the reading section. So make sure that you learn some adjectives, that you don't stick with the basic ones. Because the way we speak on it, honestly, is obviously going to be just using basic words. Out of the thousands of words in the English vocabulary, we only know the basic ones. But in terms of writing and in terms of reading, you will need to know more adjectives than that. So don't focus on learning like nouns or learning verbs. That's not going to be helpful for the TOEFL test. Only focus on learning adjectives, okay? And third, and this is like a quick way to improve vocabulary, make sure that you learn prefixes and suffixes, and obviously word groups. Now, the good things about vocabulary is that, since like same thing is like happens in Spanish, you probably realize. But from a word, you can learn many words. Like let's say the word, I don't know. The word frequent, right? Now that I'm seeing that. Frequent is an adjective. But from this word, then you get many words. You get the word frequency, by the way, right? So from one root word, then you can get many others. So it's important to always consider that when learning vocabulary. Make sure that you study some common prefixes, some common suffixes. For example, the suffix less, right? Does anyone know what it means? This is a suffix. Can you think of a word that contains at the end less? You guys think of a word that has the suffix less at the end?
Powerless, meaningless.
Great. So for example, the word meaningless, right? What does it mean?
That it makes no sense, or it lacks of sense. Maybe.
Exactly, I like that. Word meaningless basically means lack of meaning, right? That it doesn't have any meaning. So meaningless, lack of meaning. Now, what about the word heartless? What does it mean?
It's cold hard.
Exactly. So basically, the lack of a heart, like we're not speaking literally, right? But somebody that's heartless is someone that is cold, as Henry says, or that we could not literally, but say that lacks of a heart, So basically, the suffix less refers to the lack of something, right? Meaningless, heartless, selfless. I don't know, there are so many. So just by knowing that, and obviously knowing the roots of the word, meaning, heart, then you already know that vocabulary. So it's important to know, and this is just an example, because of course, there are more complex suffixes and more complex prefixes than less. But this is just an example of how just by learning what a suffix or a prefix means, then you can understand, you can expand your vocabulary. Okay, so those are going to be the 3 tips that I give you for learning vocabulary, which is important for the TOEFL test. Learn with context, focus on adjectives, don't forget about everything else, and make sure that you know some prefixes and some suffixes and some examples of them. Okay, guys? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that so far? All right. So now we're going to go back to the Teotihuacan passage, and let's take a look at this question. Wendy, could you please read the question and the options?
Okay. The word ingenuity in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to A, ambition, B, sincerity, B, faith, D, cleverness.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. So why did we read the options? I would say this is probably the only question type in which you should read the options first. Okay, why? Because they're asking for what? It's always going to look the same, by the way. Vocabulary questions are always phrased in the same way. The word ingenuity is closest in meaning to. You will always have that in a vocabulary question. So what happens? You have a word extracted from a paragraph, and you have to choose the option that is a synonym for that word, okay? Or that is closest in meaning, basically is a synonym. Now, obviously, it needs to make sense, not only like if you take a dictionary and you look for the word, it should be in the synonyms, because maybe the word ingenuity has 2 definitions. Maybe you have more than one synonym for the word ingenuity. So not only does it have to be a synonym of the word, but it also needs to make sense in the context where it's used, right? Because some words have more than one definition, more than one synonym, but not all of them can be used in the same context. So you need to be careful with both things. Now, what do we do in these cases? First thing, you need to ask yourself, do I know the word? Can I identify a synonym of the word in these options? So can you identify a synonym of the word ingenuity in the options?
It could be cleverness.
Okay, good. It could be cleverness, Steve. How sure are you? Are you 100% sure that it's cleverness? I think everyone is going for D, right? Cleverness. Are you guys totally sure that cleverness, is the only synonym out of these 4 options for the word ingenuity? Yes? Okay, I see some of you guys are nodding. In that case, if you are at least 90% sure that cleverness is definitely a synonym of ingenuity and is the only one among the options, then you should still double check. So you should just go back to this and reread the phrase or the sentence where the word is, in this case, replacing it with your choice, right? So you're gonna read the cleverness and foresightness of Teotihuacan's elite. If it makes sense, then that's it. It shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds and you move forward to the next question. We're just gonna choose D and we're gonna move on. That's the way to go. Now, obviously, and this is usually the problem, what happens if you don't know this word, or maybe you don't know one of the options? In that case, chances are you won't be 100% sure that you're correct. There's no 100% effective way to get to the right choice if you don't know the word. But there are some things that you can do to get closer to the right option. Okay, so let's imagine that we don't know what ingenuity is, because you guys are right. Option D is the right one. But let's just suppose that we don't know what ingenuity is. We're lost. What do we do? What would you guys think? What should we do if we don't know the word? What would you do?
We can know the meaning because of the context.
Exactly. And basically, remember when I told you to study vocabulary, do it with context? That's what you have to do when you're studying vocabulary. You need to practice this skill. So you're gonna read something, obviously for some complexity, you're gonna read an academic article. When you're practicing, you're gonna identify the words that you don't know. And before you check the dictionary, before you look them up, you're gonna see if you can understand the meaning with the context. Because you will need this skill not only for the reading, but for the listening, for the writing, even for the speaking section. You will definitely find words that you don't know. It's normal. We're not like a living dictionary. There are gonna be words that you don't know. So you need to master that skill of understanding words by context. How do we do that? In this case, what we're gonna do is, again, we're gonna look for the main idea of this paragraph, and we're gonna see how this word relates or contributes to that main idea. Okay, so what is the relationship between, why is that word there? Can you guys tell me what the main idea of this paragraph is? I'm gonna give you guys some seconds. What's this paragraph about? What's the main idea? Can anyone tell me what the main idea of the paragraph is?
It explains what they did to become an important place from the exploitation of obsidian, and also they are making a summary of what happened in Teotihuacan.
Okay, good. So yes, they explain what they did or what they had, what the factors were that led them to grow, right? To be an important city. So these are basically like a list of the factors, the things that influenced in their growth. And now if we ask ourselves, how does this word ingenuity fit in this paragraph? Actually, the ingenuity of the elite was one of the factors, right? One of the other factors that contributed to the development of Teotihuacan, right? The ingenuity of the elite was one of the factors that led to the development of Teotihuacan. So that is it. That is basically the context that you get. You can obviously compare it to the other factors because this is not the only one. You have other factors such as geographic location, their resources, their potential for extensive irrigation, their significance as a shrine. All of those were factors that influence the development of the city. So you need to ask yourself, would it be the ambition of the elite? It could be, right? It could be a really good factor. We could say the ambition of the elite influenced the development of the city. It makes sense. Now, I don't know if the sincerity of the elite would be a good factor, right? Because we're not really talking about values or principles. So I would honestly discard that option based on context. Now, the fate of the elite. Again, it doesn't make that much sense to me because it's not about religion so much. And the cleverness of the elite. Yes, that also makes some sense, right? Because we're talking about the fact that they were very developed, very civilized. So probably they were very ambitious or they were very clever. That is one thing. Another thing is the word ingenuity is not alone. It says the ingenuity and foresightness of the Teotihuacan's elite. Does anyone here know what foresightness means? What does it mean? Anybody? Does anyone know? And actually, this goes back to the tip that I was giving. That last part is the suffix. What comes before is actually a prefix. And what's in the middle is the word root. Okay? So this is a compound word, actually. Do you guys know what site is, the root of the word? What is sight?
Like vision.
Exactly, like vision. That's to do with the verb, actually it comes from the verb see, right? See is sight. Like love at first sight, vista in Spanish. What about ness? That suffix, I'm pretty sure that you've heard it before. Even the word cleverness has that suffix, you know, cleverness, foresight. So does that add any meaning? Not really, right? That ness doesn't really mean anything other than it's a noun. So we're not gonna consider that. It's just saying that it's a noun. Like lazy is an adjective, laziness is a noun. Clever is an adjective, cleverness is a noun. So that means just telling us that it's a noun. What about the prefix for? Can you associate it to other words that you've heard or seen before? Do you guys know? For example, forecast has that same prefix, or foreshadowing. So if we look it up, you know, forecast, the weather forecast, do you guys know what it is? The weather forecast is a prediction of the weather, right? So for basically is a prefix that has to do with before, okay? So foresight, it means basically the ability to see before it happens, to see something before it happens, to prevent, to make predictions and take provisions. So foresightness, see before, vision before it happens. So foresightness here basically means the ability to make predictions. Not in a mystical way to see the future, but to make predictions and to take preventions based on that. So that is another thing that if you know what the word foresightness means, then that could also give you a clue for the context, right? Because ingenuity needs to be similar to that. So foresightness has a lot to do with cleverness, has a lot to do with being smart, with being intelligent, being clever, being like figuring things out, and so forth. You know, being creative, perhaps. So cleverness and foresightness are very close in that sense. And those are the things that can give you some clues. As I was telling you, there's no like 100% effective way that you're gonna get to the answer if you don't actually know the word. But there are some things that are gonna get you closer to that, you know, by using context. So those are some things that you guys can do. Is that okay? Do we have any questions about that? Going back to what I was saying, you may be wondering, but the word ingenuity isn't really an adjective, right? It's a noun. So why did I tell you to study adjectives? And why did I tell you to study suffixes and prefixes? Because if you think about it, ingenuity comes from ingenious plus the suffix it, right? And I'm pretty sure that you've already seen something about this suffix, but this is the adjective. So if you know the adjective, you know that somebody that's ingenious is someone that's clever. It actually goes like to the engineering part, and it basically it's a noun, right? Like, I don't know, reliability, ability, capability. So that suffix tells you that it's a noun. So studying words like this is gonna help you to learn vocabulary quick, okay? Because you don't really need to know these two words. You just need to know the suffix that is gonna be useful for many other words. And you need to know the root of the word, which is normally gonna be the adjective, okay? So is this okay? Do you guys have any questions before we go? Tomorrow we're gonna continue, by the way, we're just missing one type of question, which is the last summary questions. And then we're just gonna practice, all right? We're gonna take like 15 minutes of tomorrow's class to finish with the summary questions. And then we'll do an entire set of practice. You guys, any questions before we go? No questions? You guys, thank you so much. Please don't forget today's survey. It's on your screens. And thank you for joining. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye, teacher.
Thank you,
teacher.
teacher. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
See you tomorrow, teacher.
Bye-bye.